Welcome to History Channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. The ball turret gunner of the B-17 Flying Fortress, Humpty Dumpty, reveals flak damage dangerously. Close to his position in 1944, the image captures both the fragility and resilience of bomber crews in World War II. Every mission carried the risk of death, yet many continued flying regardless. A Fanta shop in Moscow during the late 1980s shows a rare glimpse of Western consumer culture entering Soviet society. Once closed to such influences, the USSR was beginning to experience new products that hinted at cultural change, just before the nation itself faced historic transformation. In Rwanda around 1960, a man holds a sign denouncing Tutsi dominance and rejecting immediate independence. This moment reflects the deep political and ethnic divisions shaping the country's turbulent path toward nationhood. The call for democracy over rushed independence foreshadowed conflicts that would scar the nation. An official 1989 portrait of Sultan Hamid X displays the enduring traditions of the Yogyakarta Sultanate. Revered with titles linking him to sea, land, and faith, the Sultan embodies both cultural authority and historical continuity. This formal image illustrates the symbolic power of monarchy in modern Indonesia. During World War I, around 1916, a British woman stands on a railway platform as a train conductor. With men at war, women took on roles traditionally closed to them. The photograph highlights a profound social shift, as women entered industries and public duties in unprecedented numbers. In July 1944, the first echelon of the Brazilian Expeditionary Force boarded the USS General W. A. Mann. Their journey marked Brazil's direct involvement in World War II, as troops traveled across the Atlantic to fight alongside the Allies in Europe. It was a defining moment in Brazilian history. On June 2, 1953, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip rode in the ornate gold state coach during the coronation procession. The journey from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey was steeped in tradition, watched by millions. It symbolized both continuity of monarchy and Britain's post-war revival. In September 1944, citizens of Monaco celebrated as Allied forces arrived to liberate the small principality from German occupation. Crowds filled the streets, waving flags and cheering soldiers. The joy of liberation reflected both relief from hardship and gratitude toward those who helped restore freedom. George Lincoln Rockwell, leader of the American Nazi Party, is shown at a rally in 1967. His extreme ideology provoked both followers and opponents in the United States. Just months later, internal divisions led to his assassination by a disillusioned member of his own movement. On July 28, 1945, a man gazes at the Empire State Building after a plane crashed into it. The accident, caused by fog, left a gaping hole in the skyscraper. Though tragic, the building remains structurally sound, symbolizing New York's resilience even in moments of disaster. A photograph of the Great Wall of China along Nankou Pass, taken between 1900 and 1940, shows the immense stone fortifications stretching across rugged terrain. This section, one of the passes of Jiangguan, highlights the strategic importance of the wall in protecting China from northern invasions. Around 1973, a Chinese soldier on leave visits the Great Wall of China with his sweetheart. The moment captures personal tenderness against the backdrop of one of the world's greatest fortifications. Amid political change, ordinary lives still carried love, leisure, and simple human connection. In 1942, wartime thrift inspired resourceful clothing ideas. Playsuits for daughters could be fashioned from worn house dresses, and boys' trousers repurposed from old coats. These adaptations reflected both necessity and creativity during an era of rationing, when families made do with what little they had. The funeral of Soviet Ambassador Pyotr Voykov in 1927 drew significant attention. Assassinated in Poland by a White Russian seeking revenge for the Romanovs, his death symbolized the lingering wounds of the Russian Revolution. The funeral became both a moment of mourning and a political statement. Hamburg's St. Pauli district in the 1960s reveals its infamous red light area in daylight. The image captures streets lined with clubs and bars that would come alive at night, a symbol of both entertainment and controversy. St. Pauli was central to Hamburg's reputation for nightlife. In 1943, a forced laborer from the Soviet Union wears an Ostarbeiter badge in Germany. The badge marked him as an Eastern worker, part of millions exploited under Nazi rule. The image reflects both human suffering and the inescapable control of occupation during the war. In South Africa around 1976, musician Evan Cady of National Wake, the country's first multiracial punk band, receives a fine from police. Their music challenged apartheid through sound and protest. The photo embodies resistance, showing how art and defiance intertwined in a divided nation. On September 11, 2001, Shock in Panathinaikos observed a moment of silence before kickoff in a Champions League match. News of the attacks in the United States had spread worldwide. The gesture reflected global solidarity and mourning in the immediate aftermath of tragedy. At Langley Field in July 1942, ground crew service in a 20 Havoc bomber in full color. The workers ensured these medium bombers remained combat-ready. The photo highlights the often overlooked but vital support roles that kept the U.S. war effort functioning with precision and dedication. After Kristallnacht in 1938, Americans protested in Los Angeles against Nazi Germany. Demonstrators carried signs condemning its place among civilized nations. The rally reflected both outrage at anti-Jewish violence and early attempts to raise awareness about growing fascism abroad, even before the U.S. entered the war. Charles J. Guiteau, photographed in 1881, was the assassin of President James A. Garfield, delusional and seeking notoriety. He danced on his way to execution after insisting he was a hero. The image captures the unsettling face of a man whose act shook American politics. In October 1942, on North American's outdoor assembly line, a painter cleaned the tail section of a P-51 fighter before applying camouflage. The vivid original color photo illustrates industrial scale and precision, as America's wartime production delivered powerful aircraft to the front lines. On April 29, 1945, German Colonel Kleber discussed the surrender of the 148th Infantry Division with Brazilian Major Ferreira. The meeting at Colecchio marked a significant moment for Brazil's forces in Europe, symbolizing the global scale of Allied cooperation in the final days of the war. On September 10, 1950, Dutch television broadcast a football match for the first time. PSV faced FC Eindhoven in this historic event. The broadcast marked the beginning of a new era, when television would forever change the way people experienced sports in the Netherlands. In May 1996, Chinese and Japanese workers gathered abandoned chemical weapons left by the Imperial Japanese Army in Jilin Province. The project aimed to safely remove and destroy hazardous remnants of war. The photograph shows the lingering dangers of past conflicts resurfacing decades later. Lithuania's first president, Antanas Smetona, is seen on horseback in the 1930s. His leadership helped shape the nation's independence between the wars. The photograph reflects both national pride and the political turbulence that defined the Baltic region during a fragile interwar period. In Japan during the 1950s, an American soldier poses beneath a Daruma sign, unintentionally imitating its stance. The lighthearted image reveals cultural encounters during the U.S. post-war presence. Amid occupation and rebuilding, everyday moments of humor and cross-cultural contact also defined the era. A massive 200-pounder Parrott rifle sits on Morris Island in 1865, a symbol of the Union's heavy artillery power during the final months of the Civil War, positioned to bombard Confederate defenses near Charleston. The weapon illustrates the scale of firepower that defined late-war sieges. Faiz Bey El Azim appears in Jordania on March 2, 1918, captured in rare autochrome Lumiere color. This early photographic process brought a sense of life to images at the twilight of the Ottoman Empire, preserving both personal presence and the region's transitional moment in history. The draw for the 1958 World Cup in Sweden marked a pivotal event in football history. It was the tournament where a young Pelle would rise to global fame, forever changing the sport. The draw itself represented anticipation, as nations prepared for competition on the world stage. At Expo 1967 in Montreal, the Netherlands pavilion displayed the flags of Suriname, the Netherlands, and the Netherlands Antilles. The design reflected both shared heritage and the complexity of colonial ties. The exhibition showcased national pride while also hinting at the shifting relationships within the Dutch kingdom. Swan River in Manitoba, Canada, photographed in 1956, offers a tranquil scene of natural beauty. The area, named for the river flowing through it, reflects the quiet life of small Canadian towns in the mid-20th century. Such images capture both landscape and the everyday rhythms of rural living. In Enid, Oklahoma, 1948, two sisters wash the family car while their mother observes nearby. The post-war years brought prosperity and suburban growth in America, and such simple domestic moments reflected new cultural values. Family life and consumer goods became symbols of stability and aspiration. Harry Houdini performs his legendary Chinese water torture cell escape in 1910, suspended upside down in a locked water-filled tank. Houdini captivated audiences with daring feats of endurance. The performance exemplified his mastery of showmanship and his reputation as the world's most famous escape artist. At Balachati in India, around 1942, a youth orchestra plays in a refugee camp for Polish orphans. The camp offered safety and education to children displaced by war. Music became both cultural expression and a source of comfort, helping young refugees rebuild fragments of normal life. A photograph of Armin Kuhn shows him as a teenage German soldier. Having left home at only 12, after the war, he faced trial for participating in the lynching of a fellow prisoner. His story reflects both the manipulation of youth under Nazism and the tragic consequences of fanaticism. On December 31, 1944, in Schanau, Germany, two American soldiers struggle up a steep hill with rations. Their duty was to keep frontline troops supplied during brutal winter fighting. The image reveals the unseen but vital work of logistics that sustained soldiers amid the hardships of war. In 1985, Soviet troops stationed in East Germany visited an amusement park in East Berlin. Off-duty, they enjoyed rides and laughter, a rare glimpse of humanity behind the uniforms. The scene contrasts the Cold War's tensions with the everyday lives of young soldiers far from home. In 1901, a worker at Parkgate Ironworks in Rotherham made the V sign toward a camera, expressing his annoyance at being filmed. This moment is the earliest documented use of the gesture in an offensive sense, capturing a piece of working-class defiance in industrial Britain. On September 9, 1945, General He Ying-kin formally accepted the surrender of Japan's China Expeditionary Army in Nanjing. This ceremony marked the official end of the Second Sino-Japanese War, a brutal conflict that had devastated millions. The event symbolized both closure and the beginning of reconstruction for China. LCUN-C2 stands near Hostel 3 in Kunming, China. Shortly after commissioning into the U.S. Army Nurse Corps in July 1944, she later served in Kunming, Chengdu, and Shanghai, caring for soldiers during and after the war. Her story highlights the vital role of women in military medicine. Near Huayan, in Shanxi Province, China, a corner of an ancient city wall is captured between 1900 and 1940. The image reflects the endurance of traditional Chinese fortifications, remnants of dynastic strength. Such structures linked past defenses with the slow modernization of early 20th century China. In 1903, a massive saltwater crocodile was caught in the Johnstone River at Innisfail, Australia. The animal, taken from the town Reach, illustrates both the dangers of living alongside such predators and the fascination they inspired. It remains part of local history and legend. In 1940, Mexican police displayed the pickaxe used to assassinate Leon Trotsky, the exiled revolutionary leader. Attacked in his Mexico City home by a Stalinist agent, Trotsky's violent death symbolized the global reach of Soviet politics. The weapon became a chilling artifact of political struggle and betrayal. During Russia's constitutional crisis in 1993, a protester injured in clashes with government forces symbolized the country's turmoil. Demonstrations against President Yeltsin's policies escalated into violence as the state confronted dissent. The image captures the human cost of political transition in a fragile post-Soviet era. On June 19, 1995, Christopher Biggie Smalls Wallace was arrested for armed robbery. Long before becoming one of hip-hop's most iconic figures, his early years were marked by crime and hardship. The photograph stands as a reminder of the struggles that shaped his rise. On May 27, 1952, General Eisenhower met General Matthew Ridgway in Paris, wearing aviator sunglasses. Eisenhower projected confidence and authority, embodying the image of a modern military leader. The meeting reflected NATO's strategic discussions during the early Cold War, as Europe rebuilt under American leadership. In 1945, President Harry Truman awarded General Dwight D. Eisenhower the Distinguished Service Medal in an outdoor ceremony. Mrs. Eisenhower watched as her husband received the honor. The moment captured America's gratitude for Eisenhower's wartime leadership, recognizing his role in guiding Allied forces to victory in Europe. In August 1917, Vladimir Lenin disguised himself with a wig and shaved face to flee Russia. Accused of being a German agent by the provisional government, he risked arrest. His secret escape preserved his role in the revolution, shaping the future of Soviet power. A tobacco enema resuscitation set, popular in the 18th and 19th centuries, is displayed in a 2014 photograph. Once believed to revive drowning victims by blowing smoke into the body, it represents the strange medical practices of the past. Today, it stands as a symbol of discarded science,